To me, this complete transposition reflects a change in our characters. Have you ever been through hell? Have you ever been through something so life-changing that you are now a completely different person? I think most of us can relate to this. You have the same name, you have the same voice, the same skin, the same appearance, but a completely different story to tell and how you tell it. There's a secret to the ending theme of Final Fantasy X. How it's orchestrated, rearranged, makes it more emotional than any other RPG I've ever played. Back in 2001, Final Fantasy X was released, and it's a game that needs no introduction to the video game community. It was the very first game that I rented at 13 years old. We just bought a PS2. We had some games, but nothing like Final Fantasy. In fact, I think it's one of the best cover arts of any game because it exactly conveys how the game feels while you play it. I think all of us 13-year-old boys saw ourselves as Thiede, or at least wanted to be like him. Thiede, whatever you want to say. 20 years later, I now hold a PhD in music composition and finally finished the game. But what I didn't know back then is how much of a lasting impact the story would have on me, particularly how it was expressed through the music. The 2000s were a different time. It seemed like most games, at least Final Fantasy games, were some sort of isekai. Isekai is literally translated as different world, and is a type of story that transports the main protagonist or protagonists to literally a different world. Typically, the characters have little or no knowledge and have to have a lot explained to them, but it works really well because not only is the character new to the world, but the audience, the player, is new to the world. So it goes hand in hand and goes well with introducing something totally brand new or not well known. It was very typical of that time. I'm looking at you, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and Final Fantasy X incorporates and is a type of isekai. 3 disclosures. 1, major spoilers coming up. So if you're 20 years too late and loathe spoilers, this is your warning. Go ahead and click away, play the game, come back. Number 2, this is not going to be Final Fantasy X 101. It's going to be definitely catered to the upperclassman version of this story. So I'm going to cover some basic stuff, but mostly skip over the important stuff, assuming you know a lot of the story. And then number 3, my major sources are going to be fan wikis, so please don't at me. I'm just trying to have fun. So I'm going to structure this video in 2 parts to try to explain and convey the emotional damage this game gave us. First, the story, and then second, the music. So we go to Thiede, or Thiede, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to call him Thiede. He lives in Zanarkand, but it's essentially a simulation. He's real, the world's real, but it's fragile. It's literally a dream, or supported by dreams. Thiede is transported from the simulation to the real version of the world. The weird thing is that his home, or the simulation, is a replica of real Zanarkand that actually exists in the real world, but as it was 1,000 years in the past. At first, Thiede and the audience think that Sin is a time traveler, or an agent of time travel, or a time travel machine, and it's not until late in the game that it's realized that no time travel actually occurred. Thiede's city, Zanarkand, is just a perfect utopia, replica, dream of what the city was like 1,000 years ago, but has been preserved over the 1,000 years. The dream simulation that is Thiede's Zanarkand is very much real and exists in Spira, just somewhere in the ocean, an undisclosed location. No one actually knows where the dream Zanarkand is, but it's there and actually coexists with the post-Zanarkand destruction that we know. So there's ruined Zanarkand to the north, and then somewhere in the sea is the simulation dream Zanarkand. So in sum, the events of the game actually take place over 20 years from beginning to end, not 1,000 years. So in this introduction, I think what I want to highlight is the emotional weight that you, the player, carry and empathize with the character Thiede. Especially if you're a player that was a young teenager like me, you definitely felt it a little bit deeper. Thiede has some very real and understandable daddy issues. Jekt, his father, is an arrogant, alcoholic athlete. Hey, see what I did there? And essentially tells Thiede to stop being a crybaby every chance that he can get. And it even seems in some scenes just totally unprovoked that Jekt's like, hey, you're a crybaby. You're dumb, crybaby. And then Thiede cries, understandably. I would cry if I was 10. His dad left him and his mom 10 years from the present day of the story, but it wasn't intentional. It turns out that Jack seemed to accidentally wind up in Spira. Maybe he was drunk, but it wasn't of his own volition that he left Dream Zanarkand. But to Titus, it really felt like Jack had abandoned him and his family, and he had no father figure to look up to through his formative years. In addition to that, Titus encounters Sin, who we're going to get to in a second. Well, actually, I should probably explain Sin. So, eventually, for some reason in the story, the triggering event, Titus is in his perfect utopia, but then he gets swallowed up by Sin and apparently time travel when he's just really transferred over to Spira, mainland, and finds himself in a new, sorrowful, broken, terrifying world. And if you can recall the destruction of Sin at Kilika in that scene of Final Fantasy X, I think what's disturbing is that after the game released, 9/11 happened, and terrorism became very real and universal to us. And I think what made Final Fantasy X uncanny was that we had new feelings of what destruction and death felt like, and in very real ways we empathized and were inserted into the world of Final Fantasy X throughout the 2000s. But there's some slight reprieve as Titus makes some new friends in the Besaid Aurochs, as well as his Biffle Waka. And seriously, I want a best friend forever for life like Waka. The way that Waka is so patient, fun, and excited around Titus is what I want in a friend. Who could not be cheery, hopeful, and optimistic with a friend in Waka? But then Titus very much stumbles upon meeting Yuna, and let me really try to convey this well. The directors and story writers of Final Fantasy X did a phenomenal job curating Titus and Yuna's meet cute. Despite it being a literal fantasy culmination of a world, their first interaction is completely believable and realistic. I think most of us are won over by this game in their first meeting because of how believable it is. And I think I literally was feeling what Titus was feeling meeting Yuna. Just this wonder and curiosity and infatuation. This girl comes out of a room, very important person, and almost faints, and has this multiple guardians and this tiger man running to make sure she's okay. And then she announces, "I'm a summoner." And from there, you could just be like, she's important. I'm a scrub. I'm now a grown man, fortunately, happily married to my very own Yuna, with 3 little kids at home. But I think for all of us teenagers 20 years ago, playing this game for the very first time really wanted a sort of love that felt like what we got from the unique perspective of Titus. And we were fortunate enough to experience that in the first few hours of the game. Even if you were inexperienced and had no experience with video games, you could very easily see what that experience was like for them to meet for the first time. They were 2 polar opposite strangers finding love in a broken, sinful world. See what I did there? And as you might assume, their relationship and love story will be the common thread throughout this video essay. Without Titus and Yuna's relationship, the music and feelings of this game are just not there. And this becomes a very less interesting story simply about good versus evil, rather than meanings of life and true love and relationships. And what is the music we hear during this meet cute? The Hymn of Fayth. I'm gonna hit that in a second later. What's more impactful is how authentic and natural Titus and Yuna's relationship is. They were able to be open, honest, and vulnerable within a simple friendship. Some moments were awkward, but in a way that was true to themselves. I think oftentimes we are awkward because we are conveying or telling some sort of lie about ourselves. You might often be awkward because you're trying to lie about how confident you are, or how smart you are, or how emotionally intelligent you are. It's also awkward because you're a bad liar, and your crush instantly knows and reads through your lies. But with Titus and Yuna, there are moments of awkwardness that are endearing because they're telling the truth about who they are and what they want. That sort of openness, honesty, and vulnerability ironically taught me a lot about what it means to have any sort of relationship with others, let alone a romantic relationship. On its face, Final Fantasy X is a story about a pilgrimage, but reading between the lines, it's a story about Titus and Yuna going on an adventure together. While the battles, enemies, and plot changes, so does their relationship as it deepens. Titus learns that his dad is the very embodiment of all the death and pain the whole world feels in this creature called Sin. Yuna has to put on her brave face as she tries to find the perfect time to tell her crush that she eventually has to sacrifice her. Not only that's the whole purpose of their journey together, is to eventually die for the world. Their pain, while not totally equal in weight, is very equivalent. And you can watch so many different video essays showing the parallels between Titus and Yuna and Seymour and Jecht. Both of them have famous fathers, and both eventually suffer some sort of sacrificial death. And it's this love story that amplifies the music, and the music amplifies the story. The Hymn of Fayth. This hymn becomes a sort of anchor point for the entire nation of Spira. It's a hymn known to its inhabitants and, in a way, breaks the fourth wall to the player. As the audience to Spira's story, we constantly hear the hymn in various contexts, mostly sung by respective faiths that Yuna prays to on her pilgrimage. It's yet another through line, another thread connecting the entire story. I think without the Hymn of the Fayth, it would not be the religion of Yevon, it would not be the land of Spira, and it certainly would not be Final Fantasy X. Musically, the melody of the Hymn of the Fayth emulates the chants found in Western church music because the melody is in a Dorian mode. Lyrically, the song has no inherent meaning to the characters in the story. However, the lyrics have become sort of a augmented reality game, I found, an ARG, as the words rearranged in Japanese reveal a unified and a coherent meaning to the game. And I'll post a link to the cipher below, and you can nerd out about it on your own. While the characters never discuss the meaning of the lyrics in the song, the melody is often cited as a source of comfort to everyone. I can remember when it's revealed to the gang that Seymour killed his own father and they have to kill Seymour, who's a maester, and Waka is losing his faith, literally. And when they're down below Lake Makalania, Lulu tells Waka to calm down and listen to the hymn, and as it comforts him. Jecht and Jecht as Sin loves the hymn and gravitates to wherever he can hear it. It's a religious song, but it's also an enjoyable and comforting song to the characters. And because the characters keep telling us this, it's soothing and comforting to us as a audience member, and it creates a sort of memory that we can rely on and have some sort of nostalgia for, even though we've never lived in Spira. It becomes less of a hymn or some sort of religious liturgy and more like a lullaby to everyone who listens to it. We also really only hear the melody in some sort of solo voce or voice alone. The main hymn does have an arrangement that we know of that's 5-part SATB, and Yunalesca's Hymn of the Fayth has a 3-part men's chorus, but other than that, each iteration is really one voice alone. When the hymn is sung in multiple part harmony, generally it's in that Gregorian chant style where there's loads of perfect fifths and fourths without any semblance of chromaticism or modern harmonic devices. This simplicity of harmony will be important as we see the same melody applied very powerfully to the end theme to create a cornucopia of emotions. And then the second piece I want to talk about is To Zanarkand. I think this song could represent the entire Final Fantasy franchise as the best melody and piece of music in the series. And yes, even more important than the prelude, even more important than Final Fantasy's main theme. In a way, as the players were privileged to hear it every time we boot up and play the game. It's on the loading screen. There's no need to cut to a specific story beat, nor trigger an event down the line or get good after a final boss. All is needed is to just start playing the game and you hear that wonderful piece of music. I remember in high school that one of my classmates said that she didn't want to play the game. She just wanted to load it up on her PS2 and fall asleep. This is weird to think about now because this was well before Spotify, YouTube, streaming, or even having the OST in the United States. You'd have to figure out how to buy a Japanese copy and then ship it to America and pay for all that shipping and handling back in 2002. The melody, harmony, and arrangement on piano is both simple yet complex. It's easy to listen to, yet every listen unearths something new and unique. It rewards the emerging piano player like myself by using unique rhythms and harmonies and finger patterns. It's easy to learn, but difficult to master. Unlike the Hymn of the Fayth, this song is unknown to our cast of characters. It is the background music to the player, the audience, yet finds itself in theme and variations throughout the game. Because the Zanarkand theme recurs, it creates another important memory for the player to create feelings of nostalgia, sadness, love, and hope. All these things I've discussed so far, the story, the music, the love, the variations, culminates and creates the most emotional ending theme I can remember. The track's just titled Ending Theme, but it means so much more than that to me. If you watch the final FMV, it's not obvious how sad this ending is. Moments before, when fighting Yu Yemin, that final boss fight, Titus breaks it to his party that his last fight and his final goodbye, he will disappear when they win. Growing up, I constantly watched without actually beating the game, and because the furthest I ever got was Evray and Bevel. So actually playing the game gave me such a unique experience I didn't expect, even as a grown man in my 30s 20 years later. As Yuna performs her final setting atop the airship, the music dramatically reiterates a rhythmic leitmotif that you find in the primary melody of 2 Zanarkand, the dotted quarter followed by an 8th note. This is the musical memory we all have. After the introduction makes its way through various keys and finally settles into C minor, we hear the Hymn of the Fayth finally fully and modernly harmonized. After hours, even days worth of gameplay, listening to the simple and crude melody and archaic harmonies, we're rewarded with a beautiful, rich, and uniquely harmonized version of the hymn. It's almost as if we're finally hearing it for the first time with new ears and unlocked potential. Before, we were looking at this through opaque and cloudy crystal, and now we're seeing it through clear glass in all its beauty. The scene focuses on Spira, the nation and its people, and as the melody ends, we see Titus, and suddenly we're reminded of our lover's inevitable goodbye. What makes this more painful is that it's technically not a death. Titus does not suffer an inescapable wound or bleeds out. He disappears from time and space itself. We hear this into Zanarkand, and we would never know it, but it's slightly altered. The original to Zanarkand is in E minor, and Nobuo Uematsu and his team have decided to replay this a full half step down to E flat minor. This might not seem dramatic, but if you've watched any 440Hz versus 410Hz videos, you know it has a profound effect on some and a subtle effect on others. To me, this complete transposition reflects a change in our characters. Have you ever been through hell? Have you ever been through something so life-changing that you are now a completely different person? I think most of us can relate to this. You have the same name, you have the same voice, the same skin, the same appearance, but a completely different story to tell and how you tell it. We see Titus hug Yuna and his body beginning to disappear, and as to Zanarkand crescendos into a finale, Yuna says, "I love you," and Titus embraces his necessary goodbye. I often tell people that having 3 kids under 3 is enough emotional highs and lows for one adult, let alone 2. But when I'm wanting to feel something, I listen to this end theme. To me, it's fully mature. It's good, it's true and beautiful. Something we can all mutually get something unique from, but share in common at the same time. I hope I conveyed that in this video, and I really had a blast writing this and figuring these things out, especially these feelings. And please, if you made it this far, thank you, and share this with another person who's enjoyed Final Fantasy X. Like and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to more frequently create these video essays. I'm having a lot of fun just doing them in my spare time. So, thank you again for watching. Bye now.